Well, what I was thinking is to tell them how Sherry and I met.
Oh, there you go. Go ahead.
You know, so I was working in the psychology department of a large state prison here in Arizona, and Sherry had a battle going with the administration of the state prison in what was it, Alabama?
Alabama, yeah.
Yeah, Alabama. So we were both prison reformers, or trying to reform the prison, trying to straighten out the mess that it was, which was virtually impossible. And I'd known Sherry for I think 10 years before one day I was experimenting with the voices at the prison. I had a group of prisoners who were all hearing voices who would tell me in real time what the voices were saying. So, for me, it was a whole new area. And, I was coming to the conclusion that these things weren't hallucinations like the psychiatric mafia says, but they were actual entities by the conversations that I was overhearing between the patient and the voices, and in some cases talking to the voices myself. So I was telling Sherry one day, hey, this happened at work, and I was talking to this voices, and this weird thing happened, and Sherry goes, this is 10 years after I first met her. She goes, oh, I know all about that. I said, well, what do you mean you know all about that? She goes, well, I heard them when I was a young woman. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it because she's one of the most spiritual people that I know. And so I started hammering her with questions about the voices, that only somebody who was hearing voices would know. And she was like, bam, 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 one right after another. And I was just shocked. I just amazed. So from then on, it was like we were carrying on conversations because she had experienced them personally, on her one case herself, and I was experiencing them through scores of schizophrenics. And I would bounce stuff, ask her questions, and bounce stuff off of her. And then one day we said we got to get this out to the world. We can't just sit on this. We have to get it out. So we worked for 2 years on this book here, which talks about how we came to the conclusion that these voices were entities. They weren't hallucinations like the psychiatric mafia said. And
Well, what's so good about this, Jerry, is because you have the credentials. I don't. So you have the credentials in that field so that people will listen to you rather than listening to someone like me who just experienced them, because they could think I'm just crazy, right? So that's what makes this book so powerful, is because you have the experience and the credentials to back yourself up. In fact, we did a page on his website that has all of the stuff from mainstream to back up what he's saying, because he's talking about how the pharmaceuticals are just, that's just a marketing routine, and they couldn't care less about the individual. They just want to give them some drugs, right?
yeah.
So we made a list of all that stuff and put it on his website. So if somebody wants to check him out, they can just go there and read all that stuff. And that's just confirming the background information that he's talking about. So yeah, I mean, that's what's so powerful about this whole thing. It's so nice to be working with someone who has the credentials and the experience, the hands-on experience. So he did his own research. He came to his own conclusions. I backed him up from experience. And then now he's got so many people backing him up from experience. It's just, now more and more people know about it. And there's people like you who already know about it. So, and back in my day, there weren't a whole lot of people that understood what was going on. They had these emotional upsets and upset problems. And I had a close friend of mine, and I told her about the voices, and I told her about my remedy, and she's like, okay, teach me. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So then one after another over time, a lot of people got taught how to work that. It takes a lot of work. I mean, it's not an easy fix, but it takes a lot, and you know that. So anyway, one day I think it was Jerry that suggested, well, why don't you write an article about it? Because there's a lot of people asking how this works. And to just say, oh, just say that's a lie. Well, that just takes care of it for me. But then I lived with it, right? So then I wrote the article, the That's a Lie program, on my blog, because so many people had asked me. Jerry asked me first, and then several other people had already asked me to put something down on paper so they could read it. And I never did until Jerry asked me to do it. And so I thought, okay, well, I kept thinking, how am I going to do this? The only way I could think to do it was to tell my story. And then kind of, because I kind of think that's the easiest way to do it rather than some sort of clinical stuff. Anyway,
Yeah,
so that's been real successful too. People can go read that. I've got them all on Jerry's website and mine. And so on his website in the articles, I have 3 parts. There's a link going directly to each one. And the first one is the That's a Lie program. And then the scientific part is the part 2. That comes a lot from Bruce Lipton's work. And then there's the third part, which was my journey, and what it kind of took to get there. So that's why there's 3 parts. And then on my blog, you can't really find them that easily. I've got the second part linked to the first part, and then I've got the third part linked to the second part. If anybody gets that far, it's just easier to go to Jerry's website to get them.
and that's at jerrymarzinsky.com.
Mm-hmm.
And, I knew what Sherry was saying was the truth as soon as she said it. But I would just tell the patients, well, they're liars. Why do you believe them? And the response I got is because they're so damn believable. They're so damn convincing. But Sherry turned That's a Lie program into an actual program that she beat these things with. Now, even if it doesn't get rid of them, it will weaken them. If you use it consistently, it has to be used consistently. So these things lie probably 95 to 98% of the time. Just bold-faced lies just to upset the patient. They want
And even when they tell
them
you
upset.
even when they tell you the truth, it turns out to be a lie. It's a truth that's going to get your attention. Like, okay, so maybe that's true, but it'll turn out being something that will not be good for you. Will put you in a heap load of trouble eventually. So, I mean, Jerry's got patients like that too, that, they thought they were okay, and then they ended up in prison because they got in trouble.
Or they'll tell you half truths, or they'll tell you a full truth only to hook your attention till you believe them. And once they got you believing in them and you let them in, because they'll tell you all kinds of lies, like I'm a spirit from 1700s and I can help you do this or I can help you do that. And there's some that will actually bribe you. Said, if you do this for me, um, Anana, another fellow I speak with on interviews, his voices offered him unlimited riches if he would do what they told him. Okay, and he turned them down. They offered me a lottery ticket. I never took it. And but yeah, they what they do is they push the personality out of the way and they take more and more control. So people need to realize that they need to fight back against these things because the psychiatric mafia isn't allowing for that. They're going, well, your brain is broken. It's a biochemical imbalance. There's nothing you can do about it except take our toxic medications. So there's no adversarial thing there. There's no hope there. You're turning all your power over to psychiatry, who's poisoning you with these toxic meds.
Yeah, and the sad part of that is that the people that go to the psychiatrists, they don't know the research that's been done on the brain imbalance, the chemical imbalance fraud, because if they did know that, they wouldn't buy that problem, the program that the doctor's giving them. And the doctor may not know either because they don't do any research. I mean, why? It doesn't make any sense. If I were a doctor, I would be trying my best to keep up to date with the latest of the latest, because I want to do the best for my patients.
No,
So
they're still pushing that. They're still pushing it. You can go to some of the drug advertisements, but they changed it to, it is believed that there is a biochemical, or it's suspected that there's a. They won't just come out and say it like they used to,
yeah,
with so much confidence.
well,
That
that's because of all the pushback that they've got.
Yeah. Now that came out from a drug company named Eli Lilly when they came out with Prozac in the 70s. They needed some kind of explanation as to why their drugs worked, and they didn't have one. They didn't know why. So they made one up. They go, oh, it's a chemical imbalance. I mean, our drugs are chemicals and the brain is chemical. So the chemicals must have something to do. And they just put it out there. There was no research into it. They never studied it. There was nothing to it. They knew it was bullcrap at the time and they put it out anyway. So then it spread all over psychiatry, and now it's spread to the universities. They're still teaching that rubbish in the universities, even though it's been disproved over and over and over again. Now, I was suspicious when I was working at the state hospital, and I would be in with my client with the psychiatrist, and never ever did I see them take any kind of baseline as to what chemicals were out of balance in the patient's brain or by how much. So I'm thinking, well, if it's a chemical imbalance, why don't they take some kind of lab test or EKG or EEG or some kind of, you know, objective test to determine what chemicals are out of balance or by how much? Yeah. And I'd ask them, and the one I asked, he said, "Oh, we let the drug companies do all that. We just follow what they say." And I'm like, that's ridiculous. That's like letting the fox in the hen house. It's like so they're taught that in medical school, it's a chemical imbalance, and that's what they're telling their patients when they get out. There is no chemical imbalance. They don't even know what the chemical balance of the brain should be, let alone what the imbalance is. They have no idea. And they're fostering a destructive lie. They don't know what the cause of schizophrenia is. They don't understand that it's a spiritual battle, that the voices are entities. They don't even know what the voices are telling these people. They don't want to know. They just think it's a bunch of crap. So if you think you know something, you don't go looking for an answer. And when I was at the state hospital, I'd ask all the staff, the nurses, the attendant staff, the psychiatrists, what are the voices? Oh, they're hallucinations. They all believed it. None of them were curious about what these voices were telling people. None of them. And then when I went to ask about it, I got in trouble with psychiatry. I was ordered to stop asking questions about what the voices were saying because I was upsetting the patient and I was making them worse. Twice, I was ordered to stop asking patients about what the voices were telling them. They didn't even want to go there.
Yeah. So, well, let me do this here. If anybody has any questions, make sure you put it in cap letters so I can see it. I'm the only one that's looking at the chat right now, and I really can't type and talk at the same time. I'm a dude.
So the reason Sherry's That's a Lie program works so well is because if you don't believe what they're saying, they can't get their claws in you.
Mm-hmm.
If you know they're chronic liars, they can't get their claws in you. The problem is some of these people who are delusional, I mean, those delusions are very real to them. And the That's a Lie program doesn't work. Like they say, oh, somebody broke into my apartment and they move all my papers all over. So the guy probably forgot he moved his papers himself. And for him, somebody broke into the apartment. He goes, well, I saw the papers moved. They were moved. Or I saw these people laugh at me from across the street. So the one thing that has to be done for these people to recover is to break them away from the voices. They have to understand that those voices are not who they are. They're coming in from somewhere else. They don't belong to them. Because as long as they believe that those voices are who they are, then they are. If they're listening to the voices, they become the voices. They do what the voices tell them. They let the voices do the thinking for them. And they listen to the thoughts, they listen to the suggestions. They have to break that off. So Swedenborg says none of your thoughts are your own. They either come in from heaven or they come in from hell. That the brain is like a radio receiver. It's tuned to a certain frequency and it picks up the frequency of those thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk, because let's talk about the entities, and then I want to. What are the entities? What are the voices?
They're energetic entities. They can reason. Some of them are really dumb. Some of them are really sly. There's a whole host of how smart they are. I mean, some of them are incredibly sly. I mean, almost unbelievably sly. And some of them are just dumb. They'll do stuff like, tell the patient, hey, 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 just to irritate them. Okay? For the most part, they're malicious. They're parasites. So you talk to enough schizophrenic clients, they will tell you after the voices attack, your energy level goes down to nothing. You're drained. Okay. Now they don't realize that. You bring it up and you say, well, have you noticed this? And most of them haven't noticed it until you bring it up. And they go, well, by the way, yeah, I guess that is true. Every time they come, my energy drops to nothing. And then you ask them, well, did you use that energy? No, I was laying in bed all night tossing and turning. But you feel like we're out in the sun digging ditches all day, don't you? You go, yeah. So you couldn't have used that energy. Where do you think the energy went? They say, well, I don't know. I mean, they're being blocked from understanding that these things are parasites. So what I'd tell them, I'd say, well, if you were around a campfire and you stuck your hand in that campfire 1,000 times, and every time you got burned, what's burning you? Oh, they had no trouble with the fire. Yeah, it's the fire. I said, well, okay, you've been hearing these voices for years. They've come tens of thousands of times. Every time they came, you were drained. Okay. If that happens that many times, what would you suspect was taking your energy? And still, like half to 75% would say, I don't know. They were being blocked from knowing that. Okay. Because the voices don't want them to know that. That's one of the last things the voices want them to know. And I kind of ran in that when I was working the last 10 years. I was working doing psych crisis in the hospital emergency rooms all around Tucson. I was going, what can I tell these guys in the shortest amount of time that will help them the most? Okay, without risking my job. Because if anything I said like this got back to psychiatry, I'd be in trouble. So I had to go, can I trust this patient to keep this to himself? And can I trust him to use it? And the ones that I could, I remember one gal, she had real strong voices. And I found out later she had murdered the man who had sexually molested her daughter. Okay? And I asked her when she got in. When she got in, she was pacing back and forth, and she was picking on this big black guy. And she was just going after this big black guy, and they said, you need to do something about her. So I pulled her in. I started asking her questions. I said, you hearing voices? She said, yeah. How many? She said, a few. I said, when's the last time you heard them? And this is after I didn't finish the evaluation with her yet. She said, oh, I heard them about an hour ago. I said, okay, they're going to be howling in about 5 minutes. I'm going to get away from the door. If you need to leave, just bolt out of here. I won't call the cops on you. I won't call security on you. You just go do whatever you need to do, and we'll come back and finish the evaluation later. All right. So I told her, these voices are parasites. Just like I was telling you, they come every time they come, your energy's drained. You felt it. She goes, yeah, I felt it. And then she's just started ramping up and got crazy and bolted for the door, screaming and hollering. She bolted for the door, ran around the psych day room, just like in a frenzy. And the nurses came up, well, what'd you do to her? What do you do to her? I said, well, she'll be okay in a minute. Just give her some time, and pulled her back in. They do not want the patient to know that they're parasites. That's the last thing they know. And every time I would tell a patient that, they would get upset. And I would tell a patient, I said, okay, in about 5 minutes, they're coming and they're going to be howling. And that happened every single time. The last thing they want their victim to know is that they are parasites and they're stealing their life energy.
And well, some of your patients asked how you knew this, right?
Yeah, they thought I was crazy. I said, how do you know that? You hear them too? I don't know how many times I heard that. And I said, oh, I can feel them, but I can't see them or hear them.
and after doing this for a long time, what I do, there's so many different entities. You know, you got your earthbound souls, you got your demons, if you will, your lost from light entities, AI, hybrid. You got thought form entities. I mean, anything you can think of, they're there and they're attached to people. And so I want to know how, I have a few questions on here too, which I'll ask, but Sherry, how did you stop the voices and stop that without the meds, the medical system, and professional help?
Yeah, it's kind of it's a long story, but I'll make it short.
And you need to know Sherry's an engineer.
Yeah.
Now I have one other guy I speak with who's also an engineer, and both these guys use their logic to outwit the voices. You know, they figured it out. Like, okay, if it's this, it can't be this, and that, you know, they logically figured it out.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I did. I figured out that, you know, when I was a child and I heard the voices, I had no idea what they were. I thought they were coming from me, or I thought maybe they were coming from my dad. I didn't, because I was too young to really understand. But I rejected all the things that they were trying to push me into doing. I just couldn't do it. You know, like one time I was in the Catholic orphanage. I know you don't know the story, but I was in the Catholic orphanage for about 5 or 6 years. And when I first came in, everybody had their job, right? So I think I was 6.5 when I arrived. So they put the 6.5-year-olds up to like 9 years old in charge of the babies, to bathe them and, you know, keep them clean and get them ready for bed and stuff like that. So my very first child that I was going to bathe, what I heard, and I never heard audible voices. I just had these intrusive thoughts. And I knew they were thoughts I would never have. So this thought came in like, just, you know, I was running the bath water hot, and then I was going to put cold in it. So when I got the bath water full with hot water, this thought came into my mind, oh, just stuff her in there. And I'm like, what? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. No, just do it. Just do it. Just do it. It'll be okay. No, it won't. Well, then I finally found myself lifting her. She was just a little, she's like, I don't know. I don't remember how old she was, but she was like 2 or 3 or something like that. She was just a tiny little girl compared to me, who was 6.5. So I was no giant either. But anyway, so compared to her, compared to me, she was pretty tiny. So I lifted her up and I started to put her in. And I'm like, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. And so but I managed to touch her foot to the water, and she let out a scream, and I pulled her out and I grabbed her, turned on the cold water, and we both cried. So it's like, I didn't want to do that. So that was how I reacted to them, but they were driving me nuts.
Yeah, but Sherry's pointing out something very important here. You can't just give in to them. You have to fight what they tell you to do. You have to fight to not believe what they're saying. You have to resist them. You can't just go, oh, it's okay, or this is me. And what's so bad about it is that for most people, they just sound like Sherry was saying, they sound like your own thoughts. You know, you have something like Sherry said, oh, dump this little baby in this scalding hot water. You know, it sounds just like the thousands of other thoughts that come through your mind, but the intent is very, very different. It's a very negative, destructive, nasty intent. You know? So you have to, this is a battle. You have to fight back.
Yeah, you do have to fight back with everything you've got. I mean, it's you can't, if you falter, okay, you falter, then forgive yourself and carry on, because you can't wallow in that. You just can't wallow in any of the junk.
Keep fighting.
So anyway, so that's kind of how I began. But then when I got older and I got into college, and I got a job working as an engineer, and I was like, okay, I need to know, I need to figure out what to do here. I don't know what's going on. And so see, I'm going to jump around because I'm trying to keep it short. So there was a moment when I was house sitting for this friend of mine. She was going around the world. So she needed someone to take care of her house and her dogs while she was gone. I think she was going to be gone for 3 months. So I volunteered. I didn't have any place to live anyway. She had a beautiful house. I was like, okay, this is great. So I went to the library and because I was trying to find out what was going on, and I read a bunch of books on the brain and how it works and all that stuff. But it was really, really interesting stuff, but it didn't give me any answers. And so then I finally decided to read some self-help books, and none of them gave me any answers. And so I kept going back to the library. This was before the internet. This was before computers. It was a long time ago. So I went to the library, and of course, you've heard the story. The book fell on my foot from the shelf. It's like, okay, so this is universe talking to me. And I didn't know that at the time, but I picked up the book and I looked at it, and it was a book by a guy called Wayne Dyer. And he wrote this book called Your Erroneous Zones. And I thought, oh, what an interesting title. So I took it to the coffee shop and thumbed through it to see if I wanted to buy it. That's what we could do in the bookstore in those days. So I don't think you can, I don't even know if there are any bookstores anymore.
Yeah.
But so I decided to buy the book, and I took it home and I read it and I read it and I read it. And all of a sudden there was this phrase in the book that said, I'll have to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact words. You have control of your own thoughts. Nobody can make you feel one way or the other unless you agree to it. And I put the book down. I said, I have control of my own thoughts. I do. I mean, how does that work? I didn't know how to do that. So one thing led to another. I got back to work, and we had a new contract, and they needed someone to do computer programming. So my boss came and asked me if I was interested in going to school to learn computer programming. I said, oh, that sounds really interesting. So I did that. And in the process of learning computer programming, I was equating it to the brain and how the brain works, because I had studied up on the brain, right? So it's like, okay, so that's how that works now. And then I had got this hypothesis of, what if I could reprogram my own brain? That seemed like a big, huge task because, the connections are so voluminous and there's gazillions of them. And I thought, oh, no, I need something simpler, because when I'm being attacked, I have to have something really, really easy, really super easy to do. And so I had been thinking about this for quite some time. And then I realized that, okay, so everything that comes to me that is not something according to my intent is a lie. All the lessons that I learned as a kid from the family and the orphanage and the church and all that was not true at all. So I just surmised that, okay, so now everything that comes into me like that is a lie. Well, when I started doing that, the attacks got really, really worse.
Yeah, and they do that. They will kick up to try to stop you from doing this.
Yeah,
So when they do that, you're hurting them. When they kick up and they
I
start
didn't know that
screaming.
part of it, but I knew that when I started doing that, it got worse. And so I thought, okay, so I'm going to do
Trying
it
to stop you.
again and again until I get this right. So I kept doing it and kept doing it. And finally, they would kind of go away for a while. And then I'm like, oh, this is so nice. I'm not having these problems anymore. That's wonderful. And then all of a sudden I'd be off thinking of something else, and I had no idea how I got there. And then I would realize, okay, wait a minute. I have to always remember that what they're saying to me is a lie. So I just say, that's a lie. One thing after another. I finally got to the point of, and I was trying to tell Jerry this when I first figured this out. It was quite a few years later, that you say that's a lie, and they will go away if you're not feeding them any fear or any negative energy at all. They'll go away and they'll come back and test the waters. Well, what really makes them go away for good is, that's a lie. I send you love. And I'm sending them cosmic love, similar to how you work with your patients, Tony. And I remember telling you, Jerry, about it when I first figured that out, and you're like, I can't love these guys. I hate these guys.
I know. I'd hit him with the 23rd Psalm. It's like punching him in the face.
Right. So we have me sending him love. Jerry wanted to obliterate him, and Tony sending him to the light. So hey,
I love talking to them. They're funny to me.
yeah. Well, I don't. I finally got to the point of thinking of them as Monty Python, because even when things were fixed, even though I told them it was a lie, and they would come back again and they do the same thing verbatim. It's like, what are you guys, nuts? I mean, you're just so funny. I mean, and it finally hit my funny bone, and I just started laughing at them. They
hate that. They absolutely hate that.
Yeah, they hate being laughed at.
They hate being mocked too.
Yeah,
they make fun of them. They can't stand it. Right. I had one patient in the prison. That's what he did. He just mocked them all day, made fun of them, and yeah, he was functional. Mm-hmm. They couldn't get it.
But that doesn't get rid of them totally. But I mean, it
neutralizes them.
It neutralizes them for sure. The same way it does politicians, it neutralizes them at least for a little moment. And then as soon as your back is turned, they go back to their regular stuff, right? So, but if everybody did that, they'd be all neutralized. That'd be great. So, because I happen to think that they're all invaded with these destructive spirits. I mean, I think that that's what's going on. That's just my opinion. So that's how I got rid of them. And so once in a blue moon, I mean, I'll get this strange thought, and I'm like, come on, and that's it. They're gone. So, because they know that I know, and I'm not going to give in. And, they'll just, something will come up. And as long as I don't give it a charge, I'm good.
And Emanuel Swedenborg backs that up. Christian mystic from 300 years ago. He said, none of your thoughts belong to you. They either come in from heaven or they come in from hell. Mm-hmm. And like Sherry was saying, you're the one who gives them the power. You're the one who determines which thoughts you're going to listen to and which thoughts you're going to ignore. But what they do is they try to turn the frequency down. Okay. And a lot of, most schizophrenics that I worked with had a lot of trauma, and that automatically turns the frequency down. Right. And they're like sharks swimming around the ocean smelling blood. They go after the weakest people, the ones who are broken, the ones who are traumatized, and they attack them first. They get us all. I mean, I don't think there's anybody who hadn't been walking down the sidewalk and went, wonder what would happen if I punched this guy in the back of the head. Matter of fact, I had one guy write me a couple of weeks ago. He says, yeah, I heard your lecture on the voices telling you to do bad stuff. And I was right behind my boss, and they were telling me to spit on the back of his head.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, they hit everybody, but they hit schizophrenics the most because they're actually trying to take them over. Okay? So you have to pay attention to your thoughts. Now, the hard part is a lot of times is for the schizophrenic to determine which thoughts belong to him or are good thoughts and which thoughts belong to the bad guys. And the main way to ferret that out is by the intent. What is the intent of that thought? If it's a negative intention, it's coming from, like Swedenborg says, hell. So if you realize that those thoughts aren't yours, now you can break yourself away from them and go, okay, I've got an enemy. There's somebody or something that I need to fight back against. But if you believe the psychiatric mafia that this is your brain's broken and there's nothing you can do about it, that just guts you. It just takes away all your power. And there's other things you can do about them too. The 23rd Psalm, everybody has two guardian angels. I mean, you need to ask them for help. They can't help unless you ask them. They hate the Gregorian chants. They hate you being grateful. They hate you watching comedy. They don't like reading the Bible or anything spiritual. Like I said before, they don't like being mocked. And for some reason, they don't like iron. It's not steel, it's iron. I don't know how many schizophrenics told me they don't like iron. I have no idea why.
I had no
Yeah.
idea about that.
I need to ask that in a session sometime why they don't like high.
They don't
Yeah,
like
I'd be
they don't
curious
like
to find.
frankincense either.
Mhm,
They don't like sea salt baths.
mhm.
You know? So what I would do when I was researching these things is, um, with all these, I always had a group of, maybe 10 to 13 schizophrenics I was working with in the prison. That we had a deal. I'll help you out all I can if you tell me what's going on with these voices in real time. When they show up in our sessions, tell me what they're saying. And, I'd have conversations with them. I'd have conversations with the patient, and still I didn't believe that they were evil spirits. I mean, I was thinking, well, it's something wrong. Something may not be a chemical imbalance, but it's something in their subconscious or something. So I started coming up with these patterns that they were telling me about, you know. And one of the first patterns was they were consistently negative. They never said anything good. And if they did, it was only to come back and stab the guy in the back later to kind of get his attention. And this was patient after patient after patient. I'd ask them, well, do they ever tell you anything good? And they go, no, never. It's all bad stuff. Then my question was, if they are hallucinations, as a psychiatric mafia insists they are, then why are they consistently negative? Why aren't they sometimes, happy or saying good stuff or neutral stuff or bad stuff? Why isn't there the gamut of presentation like there are with hallucinations? And I worked in hospitals for 10 years. I knew what hallucinations look like. They're random. You can't predict them. They're all over the freaking place. Different intensities and uh, but here's the first pattern that came up. They were negative, and all of them were saying that. And I'm like, okay, what holds them on such a negative path? Why aren't they random? Why aren't they all over the place? There's something that holds them on that negative path. That got my curiosity up. And then one day a guy came in and he goes, oh, the voices were hitting me last night. And I said the 23rd Psalm. And he said they reacted like worms thrown on a hot frying pan. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So, I started asking other patients, what happens when you pray? And the voices didn't like it. You know, uh, and then I started handing out copies of the 23rd Psalm and to the guys I was working with and said, say this when the voices come and come back next week and tell me what happened. It was always a negative reaction. The voices absolutely hated it. So here they are, anti-religious. So I started talking to my schizophrenic patients about what happens when you go to church. And that broke down into three categories. If the voices were very weak, they would shut up when the guy got in the church. If they were of moderate strength, they'd start mocking the preacher, making fun of the Bible, uh, raising their voice and interfering with the person listening to what the preacher was saying. They didn't want him to have any of it. They were very strong. They'd actually drive them out of the church. They'd get up and they would run out, just like they were on fire. So they were anti-religious. They didn't like the people reading the Bible, and I started investigating that. They didn't like them reading the Bible. They didn't like them praying. They didn't like them going to church. They didn't like them talking to preachers. So here's another one, another pattern showing up. Like, what kind of hallucination would be anti-religious? Why would a hallucination be anti-religious? No, here's a consistent pattern. The third one is they would steal their energy. So this went on and on and on. We got 23 different patterns now. They're on my website at jerrymarzinsky.com. Anybody who is working with schizophrenics, has one in their household or is around them, you can go see these patterns for yourself. Now, what these patterns are is an operational definition of what the voices are. So there was none before. So these are energetic entities. They're energy. There is no space. There is no time. There is no matter where they operate. They can go into the patient's head. They can pull out every rotten thing they've ever done, and they can rub it in their face because they are energy. Your thoughts are energy. Your mind is energy. Your feelings are energy. These are energetic. So what psychiatry is kind of doing is, like, if you have a big magnet, you can't see that magnetic field. You can't feel it. You can't touch it. You can't hear it. You can't taste it. For all, for all practical purposes, that magnetic field, that energy is invisible to you. It doesn't exist. So if you get a jar full of iron filings and you put it up next to that magnet will now take the magnetic field will take the form of the iron filings. The iron filing. So you'll see it there. So these patterns are the iron filings for schizophrenia. There's 23 of them. They get louder after sunset. They get louder when ignored. They foster self-destructive behavior. They foster isolation. They want to break the patient off from anybody, from their family, from their wife, from their girlfriend. They don't like relationships. They hate kids. They demand the victim's attention. So it's a battle for their attention. They maneuver for increased control over the victims. They gaslight. They manipulate perception. They have complete access to the patient's memory. They demand that the victim not tell anybody else about their presence. They're stunned by the shock of a rubber band that'll shut them up sometime. They're consummate liars. They constantly steer their victims away from anything that might generate joy or good feelings. They manipulate feeling without speaking. They short circuit reason. They will jump in when there's boredom. They'll jump in and take control. They try to pass themselves off as the thoughts of the victim. They foster selective forgetting. So if the patients don't write down what they're supposed to do to fight against these, they forget all that stuff.
Hey, Jerry, I got a question here that's in the chat that goes along with the Bible verses and stuff like that. And Alice is asking, do you think it was the Bible words or the positive intent behind the words?
Well, that's a good question. It certainly is the positive intent behind the words, you know. But they react to words like God and Jesus. They don't like that at all.
Right.
You know, that burns them. So this goes on for like 23 different patterns. These are fixed, repeatable patterns. They happen in almost all cases.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, what the psychiatric mafia did, they came up with the biochemical brain imbalance. You know, how are you going to investigate something like that? It's only a small number of people who can do that. They disproved that. Before that, they were using the genetic stuff, saying, "Oh, it's genetic," you know, and the geneticist, after they tackled the problem, said, "We don't see a schizophrenia gene. It just doesn't exist."
Mm-hmm.
So they needed something to explain, you know, what schizophrenia was, and they don't know. They still don't know. That there in the 8 years I spent in undergraduate and graduate psychology, they never mentioned spirit ever.
Well, now there are more and more coming to our side, and you know that too, Jerry.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more and more psychiatrists who are getting in touch with us, getting in touch with Jerry primarily.
You know, few.
Is there?
Yeah, but it's more than ever before that
More than ever before, yeah.
more than ever before. So that's a positive thing, I think. You know, that's a step in the right direction, slow as it is.
Well, we had two psychologists want to take Mace sessions. They wanted to train as Mace therapists, psychologists. And one of them asked, "Where's this stuff been all this time? What it works. How come it's not out there?" They don't want it out there.
Is there a way to research this, Jerry? Because from what the sessions that I've done, what I found with people that are hearing voices, usually, and I don't know how to research this. I don't even know how to look, you know, come up with a set of data or whatever to even, it seems like we all have clairaudience. Most of it's not opened up yet. And it seems like with schizophrenic people or people that hear voices, some trauma or something has happened that opens up the clairaudience, that they can hear the things outside of themselves. Once that happens, then all of a sudden everything is on them. So there's a lot, you know, a lot more trauma. There's a lot of entities attacking them and stuff like that. And with the sessions, I kind of feel like more we're training people to we're getting anything off that's in their energetic field that's attacking them. We're getting rid of that. But then, you know, their clairaudience is still opened up. So then it's training them to be able to discern between good or what's good for them or what's not for them. And it's a matter of, I believe it's a matter of frequency, how that how that thought feels to you. If it feels icky and sticky, it probably is, and it's not for you. But if it makes you feel joyful and happy, then than it is for you. It would be like your higher self or angels
Yeah.
coming in.
Then
Is
again,
there
the intent, the
and
intent
the
of the
intent,
thought.
right?
Is the intent negative? Is it going to help you or is it going to hurt you?
Hmm.
Sherry, I use what she said all the time. And if it's a negative thought about yourself or somebody else, it's coming in from the dark side.
Hmm. And so that probably answers one of the other questions that we had there is how do you tell between the good voices and bad voices? Can schizophrenia people hear good voices and bad voices?
Sometimes. Now, what I've seen is and especially in the emergency room. If you were going to see guardian angels at work, work site crisis in the emergency room,
Right.
these people who attempted to kill themselves and should have been killed, they should have been dead by all logical rights. They shouldn't have survived. Something interfered. So the good ones, the guardian angels, they speak mostly in feeling, intuition, and serendipity. They don't come as voices unless you're on the verge of death. All right. Then you might hear them, but
Hmm.
they don't usually speak.
Hmm.
Now the negative ones, they'll barge in there, they'll tell you all kinds of crap. They'll tell you you're no good, you're rotten, you're stupid, you're ugly, nobody likes you, kill yourself. 50,000 people in the US kill themselves every year, year after year after year. And virtually all of them are hearing a voice in their head to do it.
Hmm.
And most of them are on some kind of antipsychotic or antidepressant drug. Those drugs don't cure anything. They just tamp down symptoms and turn you into a zombie that doesn't care about this stuff.
Hmm. So
So
now I've
they are
lost.
energetic entities. They're invisible. There is no time, space, or matter where they're at. They can follow you from here to China in a heartbeat.
Hmm. So
A lot of people ask how come they can't see them, and so I'd like to. Your audience probably already knows this because they know the gist of your work. But whoever else is listening to this later on, everybody needs to know that the way our eyes are designed is a very, very narrow band of light. So we can't see we can only, I think science says it's like 0.000001% of of what's around us, of the universe, of the whole light spectrum.
Light spectrum.
Yeah, and so there's that tiny little bit that people can see, and that's the only material thing that's the only thing they can see with their physical eyes.
hmm.
So if they haven't developed what do you call it?
Clairaudience.
Clairaudience to see. No, that's to hear. To
Is
what
it?
is
Oh,
it?
yeah. If it'd be
Clairvoyance?
no, not clairvoyance.
Not
I don't know.
clairvoyance.
I don't know which clair it would be, but
Whatever clair it is that makes you see
yeah.
outside that little spectrum.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
I can't do that, but I do know some people who can. They can see their people's auras and stuff. They can see the energy
Yeah.
around
Dark
their
spots
body.
in their field and stuff.
Right, right. So, but anyway, everybody needs to know that our visual spectrum is so, so tiny in this huge spectrum of light that's in our universe. So, but we can't see them. Sometimes we can feel them. Sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, X-ray and infrared and those kinds of things. We can feel them, but we can't see them.
I got to where I could feel them in the emergency room. It was like this
Right,
achy electrical feeling. I could feel how strong they were. Could feel
right.
how angry they were.
Mhm. But you can't see them.
I
No,
couldn't see them. Couldn't
no.
hear them. Couldn't see them, but I could feel them.
Right. So now if the people get clairaudience where they can hear stuff, then they're hearing beyond the spectrum of our normal hearing.
Hmm.
Those entities are there and they're talking. And if they can hear them audibly, then they've got clairaudience. But if they can't hear them audibly and they just hear the thoughts in their head, I don't know what to call that.
I don't know either.
It's
That's
something
them.
else.
That's
I
them.
don't know how they do that, but they do it. It's not our own thoughts. I know
No,
that.
they insert the thoughts there. And Tony, what you were talking about, hearing them outside the head, I,
Hmm.
I found I found out from the hundreds of ones that I dealt with, is that the voices will move outside of their head when they feel they have them under their control, when they
Okay.
feel like they no longer have any uh, chance of losing them.
Hmm.
Then they move outside their head and they start talking from outside their head, and that's really spooky. That really scares people. So that generates a tremendous amount of negative emotional energy when they start hearing them outside and they can't see them.
So let me ask you this, Jerry. That time that I saw that smoke, there was it was a physical manifestation of the captain of the team, I think, because he was really, really powerful, or it was really, really powerful, wanting to stop me from me and my group sending Reiki to the prisons to calm things down. It was beginning to work.
Why don't you tell them that story?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. So
and the other one you need to tell is when you were battling with the voices and they had you on the ropes and they were telling you, like you said you felt like you were on a fence and they were telling you, oh, just go over the other side, just give up and let go, and they'll take care of you, you won't have to do it. Tell them that story too.
Which one you want first?
I don't know. We had a stream of consciousness going here, so I guess it would be the first
let
one.
me tell you the one about the fence, because it was pretty scary. And I was really battling with them, but I kept hearing these thoughts of, it'd be so much easier if you just give in and quit fighting the system, and everybody will take care of you. Just step over it. It'll be fine. And I'm like, no, I don't think I want to do that. I don't think I want to go there. I think I want to stay where I know it's a lot of trouble, but I think I want to stay over here. That's how I envisioned it. It was as though I was walking on the edge of a fence, and I could have gone either way. So I chose to go not that way, the way they wanted me to go, and I chose to go the other way. And it was a pretty scary moment for me, because I kind of thought, well, it would be a lot easier if somebody would just take care of me. I think I'd rather take care of myself, and even though I know it's going to be difficult, but that was the choice I made. So anybody who wants to make that choice, I applaud them, because I know how difficult it is. Now, the other story, what was it, Jerry?
Was it? What were we talking about?
we all got off track. Isn't that amazing?
Well,
it's another good story.
It was about, because I was saying that trauma and stuff, it seems to me that it's opened up the clairaudience, which would be hearing the voices. Clairvoyance was seeing things.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was the
the
captain in your living room when you were sending Reiki.
When I was doing prison reform, we had people from all over the world join. It was a really powerful organization. This goes way back to 1995, 96. So we had computers and we had internet, so that was good. But I had studied Reiki for quite a while, and I was pretty successful at it. So I asked anybody in the group, does anybody else know Reiki? And if so, I have an idea. I want to do an experiment. So we had like 5 or 6 people in the whole group that studied Reiki, and they were in different countries. So we got together on a particular discussion, and we decided, okay, so this was email back and forth, because that was a little difficult, because I didn't know how to run video. I don't even think they had chats back then. Anyway, so we finally figured out how to do this. We thought, because each of us was writing to some prisoners within the prison to get an idea of what was going on in there. And then we would compare notes, and it was kind of a ubiquitous thing. Everybody was going through the same stuff. They were all getting abused, and some of them were getting preferential treatment, and all kinds of stuff. Like what's that movie, Shawshank Redemption? Did you see that? It's kind of like that. So that's kind of reality in the prison system, at least in the United States, and probably elsewhere too. Anyway, so long story short, this group of 5 or 6 people that knew how to do Reiki, we decided, okay, so let's decide on a prison to work with. We'll set it up first to where we write to whoever we write to in there and say, here's what we're going to do, and we want you to observe. Don't get involved, just observe and let us know what you observe. So we did that with 4 or 5 different prisons. We'd gather at a particular time. We'd send Reiki energy into that particular prison, and we'd hold it for, I don't know, an hour or so. And then we would back off. And then we would wait for the letters to come because they didn't, they didn't have internet in the prisons. So wait till the letters to come, and there'd be, so then we put them all together, and it was like, there's a noticeable difference here. The guards were being more courteous. The fights were getting less. The rapes were getting less. I mean, all kinds of positive stuff. It wasn't gone, but it was noticeably less. So there was a noticeable change just in doing that. So I thought, okay, well, this is great. So we were going to do another one. We're going to start with the first one and go back and do that whole thing again. So this particular night, we gathered, and I had candles lit in the living room. I had all the lights off and stuff like that, so we could do this. And we decided to, okay, so we're ready to go. I think by then we were on Skype or something like that. Anyway, it was some kind of chat room that we were on. So I'm not sure about that. Anyway, seems like that was what was going on, but I'm not real positive. So
Doesn't
anyway,
matter. Go to the living room.
Yeah, so I'm in the living room, and we're putting out Reiki, and all of a sudden there's this huge black or dark smoky type of smoke. It was, I don't even know, it wasn't smoke, but it had that consistency of smoke. And it was darker than the darkness of the room. And it started coming around to me like a tornado, only in slow motion. And it was coming toward me, and I thought, oh my God, what's going on here? So, I had that moment of fear, that nanosecond of fear, and then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I think I know what's going on. And so I confronted it. And I said, you're not welcome here. And he said, what are you doing? Those prisons are mine. I said, no, they're not. Words to that effect. I don't remember my exact words, but anyway, so we had this little tete-a-tete kind of argument thing, and it was threatening me. And then all of a sudden I got this Monty Python jab of this is comical. This is really comical. So I started laughing. I laughed myself silly. It was so funny to me.
They hated that.
It disappeared. But in the meantime, I forgot to mention that, to back up in this story, before that entity showed up, the lights went out, the computer went off, everything was off except for my candles. And I thought, well, that's weird. I wonder if anybody else is having that problem. And then I knew after this whole thing happened, when the thing went away, the lights came back on, the computer came back on, everything came back on. That's how powerful they can be. Now, these are the bosses, or these are to me, it felt like a captain. So I don't know what it was, but it felt like a captain to me. And I just wanted to ask you, Jerry, since I didn't see an entity, I just saw the smoke. But what is that? Is that Claire visual or something like? I don't know. It didn't seem like it was. I don't know what.
Well, I don't know if you've listened to any of the videos I've done with Anand, who he had smoke appear from his ceiling too.
Okay.
It came out of like a foot below the ceiling. This thing started materializing, and it was something called a Abraxas. So it had a lion's head and a double snake body, and it came out of the smoke and got right in his face. It scared him to death.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah, so he saw that clear as a bell too.
Yeah, the voice was coming within the smoke for me, and so that was because this entity considered that those prisons, all the negative energy in those prisons, belonged to them.
Well, I can verify that.
How dare we? I know
you can feel it. As soon as you walk in the gate of those prisons, you can feel it.
Oh,
it's just, it belongs to the dark side.
Yeah, that's very obvious. It's very evident to, anybody who's sensitive to their own feelings and aware of their circumstance, their circumstance, can feel it going in. So you don't have to be special to feel it. It's just a difference. It's just
it's icky.
Yeah.
I felt like I was in a spacesuit on Mars or something. I mean, it was so I worked there, but I didn't belong there. You know, you could just feel the negativity. You know, there were blood on the sidewalks. The staff were hardened. Um, People were treated like animals. I mean, and they would give these orientations to tell you that the patients weren't almost weren't human. That you never trust anything they say. They're animals, and they treat them that way in a lot of cases. Especially the prisons attract these Kickstarter hard guys, you know, to want to prove how tough they are. But yeah, they are run by the dark side.
Hey, Jerry, do you know that? Well, it was been a long time since that hospital was shut down, the jail where you worked. So I went in. We trained in there as we did action scenarios in that hospital.
Which
and
one?
The one that's in
Georgia.
Georgia. What's it called
Milledgeville?
now? Milledgeville, yeah. So we trained in there. So we were in there, you know, after it's been long shut down for years, just
Yeah, it
this
has.
past year or whatever. It is dense. It is
Yeah,
crazy.
so you've been there.
Yeah.
You're the only other person I know who's been there.
So
right
a few times I've actually done some clearing in there before, because before we do a scenario, I'm like, I'm going to clear some of this negative energy out. You know, I'd open up a portal, have it shut down, you know, after 15 minutes, have the angels help whoever wants to go. And it actually shifted the energy in there after I did that.
Oh, that's good because it needed it.
It was crazy. It was cool, but I just want.
My equivalent of Sherry's story is, you know, as I was uncovering these patterns that kept coming up, I started wondering, well, what would happen if I started throwing monkey wrenches in those patterns and interfere with those patterns? What will happen? So I started giving the prisoners homework, you know, to disrupt the patterns. And it wasn't too long after that this group I had started coming back one after another saying the voices don't like it. They're getting pissed with you. You know, and I'm like, a hallucination's getting angry at me now. You know, like here's another thing that just doesn't fit in with the psychiatric mafia scenario. So you know, here comes a number of reports. They're upset with you. They don't like what you're doing. They're telling us not to show up. They're saying you're full of crap. You're crazy. You're a nutcase. Don't go there. Of course, you know, they kept going. And then there was one time where one of the guys I was working with, he around in the doorway on the way out. He was one of the group, and he said, "You know what you're doing is dangerous, don't you?" And I didn't think it was. I'm like, you know, they're in your head. They're not in my head. They can't come out of your head and get me. I didn't know any better at the time. And I just sat there looking at him, and he turned around and walked off. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. I wonder what that was all about. I didn't blow it off. I didn't forget it, but I didn't quite know what to do with it either. And it didn't stop me. So the next thing that happened was the same guy shows up in the medical unit. I don't know how he got in there. Knock on my door. He goes, "The voices want to talk to you." And I'm like, "They want to talk to me personally?" He said, "Yeah, they want to talk to you personally." That had never happened before. You know, in the 20 or so years before I was working with schizophrenia, they never tried to talk to me personally. So yeah, he goes, "They want to talk to you personally." And I said, "Okay, come on in." I closed the door. He sat down. I said, "Well, what do they got to say?" And these words came out of his mouth: "You have no right to interfere with our way of life." And it was like, boom, you know, that my denial system was already in tatters. It was already held together with bubble gum and duct tape. That did it. My denial system collapsed, totally collapsed. And my head was swimming, and he left. And that didn't stop me from working with him, but I'm like, what am I getting into? I don't have any cognitive map of this. I don't know what all this is about. And so the next time something like that happened, I had Miguel Ruiz's book, The Voice of Knowledge, and he was talking about these things being parasitic entities, which was the same thing that I noticed. And I was always asking the schizophrenics, question after question after question. So I brought that book in, and I brought in one guy who was hearing voices pretty steady. And I said, I'd like your opinion on what this guy is saying about, and this is before I knew about uh, uh, how parasitic these voices were. I said, I'd like your opinion on what this guy's saying about these voices. And when I got to the part where he was talking about they suck your energy, that they're parasitic, that guy went into this zombie-like stare. I mean, he just changed, he just froze. And he's just staring at me with this blank stare. And I'm like, okay, he's going to attack. So I push my chair against the wall, and he doesn't say a word. And then as soon as I push it against the wall, I heard this electrical crackling behind my head. And it was loud. It was just like a arc welder, just crack, 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 crack. And it went all the way up the right side of my office wall. And I'm trying to keep my attention on him and this thing at the same time. I didn't see anything. I couldn't smell anything, but you could hear it crack, crack, crack all the way up the wall. And then across the back of the office, and I could see him and hear track the noise at the same time. He's just sitting there like a zombie. And I asked him, do you hear this thing? Do you hear it? He didn't answer. He's just staring straight ahead like he was in a zombie daze or something. The thing starts coming down the left-hand wall, and it jumps into this Rubbermaid trash can near my left leg. And I look down in there. There's nothing there. There's this crackling, electrical noise crackling in there. There's nothing there. And then, boom, it just goes out like that. It just goes dead. And I'm like, what in the blazes is happening here? And I look at him, and he slowly gets up and he goes, I gotta leave. And he shuffles down the hall. And I'm like, yeah, get out of here. Go, go, go. I didn't have the nerve to call him in for, I think, 3 months. I waited before I called him in again. And he shows up 3 months later, and I was expecting him to be a wreck. So if they could do that, and I assumed he was some part of that because he went into this weirdo gaze the whole time. And he came in and we had some small talk. And then I asked him, I said, last time you were here, did you hear that crackling that was happening in the office? And he goes, yeah, I heard it, but I was surprised you did. And I said, what was that? And he said, that was them. I said, them who? The voices? And he said, yeah, those were the voices. And I said, well, what were they doing? He said, they were trying to scare you off. And I said, well, they did one hell of a good job with it. And I said, I asked him, I said, you looked really weird when you walked out of the office that day. You looked like a zombie. I said, what were they telling you when you walked out of the office? He said, they were telling me to go to get a shank and stick it in your belly. And I'm like, oh, he wouldn't have done that. I've worked with him for 6 months. I know him. He's slowly getting better. He wouldn't have done that. So I asked him, I said, well, why didn't you do it? And he said, I couldn't find one and nobody would give me one.
That's an amazing story, Jerry. It is. I mean, does everybody know what a shank is?
It's
a
homemade prison knife.
Yeah, we know a shank.
Okay.
Yeah. So that scared me half to death.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was at that point I was going, where is this going? I have no cognitive map. I don't know what I'm getting into. I don't know what these things are. I don't know what to do about them. It was like, entering a whole different world. I don't know how you got into this stuff, but I was kind of thrown in it. That was at that point I knew that these things were entities. There was no doubt in my mind that they were entities.
Well,
yeah. How did you get into this, Tony?
Yeah, how'd you get into this?
Well, I mean, I guess it was Rona that actually kind of got me going down the rabbit hole. So it's not been that many years, and I couldn't figure out why I had this brain fog, why I felt so run down, and nothing was happening, nothing improving. And then I came across past life regression hypnotherapy, and I'm like, that's what I need to do. That's the answer right there. I need to figure that out. So I trained in beyond quantum healing hypnosis, and I was doing sessions for friends and family, and not really getting very far. But two incidents happened to me that I was doing a session on my wife, and I kept running into. I'd get her to a dirt road street, and some town, and then she'd feel this blackness come over her chest. Then she was panicked and anxious and sweating profusely and going, I got to get out. I got to get out of here. I'm like, well, there's something there. There's an entity there or something. I need to figure out how to figure this out. And then I came across Laura Whitworth, who was doing soul center healing hypnosis, and I took her training, and that was the missing key to the puzzle. And that's kind of the short version of how I got into it. But and where she's removing entities, and we're doing it on the front end of the hypnosis therapy too, which opens, or not opens, but it helps the energy flow. That we're removing all the things that are blocking that energy flow, blocking people from healing and getting messages and stuff like that. And then the rest of the session is beautiful, and we can go on journeys. We can see what they need to see, because all that stuff that's in there, the blockages that are in their energetic field, is removed, and they can go, they can start to heal. The body heals on their own. So I never imagined in a million years that I'd be doing this. I mean, I guess my training as a paramedic has helped me to do this, because I kind of feel like I'm a hostage negotiator when I'm talking to these things. Coming at them from a position of love, because they're just lost souls. They're just like you and I. They just tripped and fell, or were lied to and deceived into doing demon works, for that matter. And I just show them love, find out how they got there, and what you find that because we're humans, we have traumatic times, and we get in those low vibrational states, and then those things attract to us like magnets, and then cause worse issues and bring their baggage. Even if there's an earthbound soul that just didn't transition like they were supposed to, they're still bringing their emotional and trauma with them. It might not always be a demon that's there, but it's lost souls as well, or earthbound souls. So yeah, so now I'm the demon slayer, lovingly.
And this Mace energy method that I got into, energetic psychotherapy, it goes after what they call negative identities that are created by traumas. Now, these aren't entities. These are like computer programs or computer viruses, where something happens to the person, like a little kid, something traumatic happens, and they make a decision during that trauma about themselves. Oh, I'm worthless. They don't care for me. It's I'm no good, and that that stays with them. Okay, and it's in the background, and because of the trauma, the ego comes and buries that trauma in the subconscious, and it's buried alive.
Right.
So Mace figured out a way how to find it, how to get it out of there, and then how to dissolve it, how to get rid of it. Now, they're not entities. They're more like Sherry was saying. They're more like computer programs that this trauma that they had, they made a snap decision about themselves during that trauma, and they're living with it for the rest of their lives. So there's people I've worked with who made a decision when they were like 6 or 7 years old that I'm worthless, and they've been living with that for decades. And you get rid of that, and they can feel the same thing where you're saying that there's a lightness. They feel calmer. It disappears, but it's not an entity.
Right. And we run into that. We remove all that stuff we run into because it presents. I mean, it might not be an entity. It could be just a trapped emotion. It could be trauma that was stored there.
How do you remove that?
Well, we just basically we're kind of doing a regression. Then we find that we find out whether it has a consciousness or not, whether it's an entity or not. And if it's not an entity, then it's something else. So we'll kind of regress them back to where it occurred. We'll have the higher self show them the scene where it started. They could take them back to a childhood memory where something happened, and then we'll change that scene. Yeah, because I think we can change our past and our future, but we'll change that scene for them. We'll flood that with white light and basically reframe that negative thought pattern in there, so they see it in a different light, in a different picture. So they're making their reality and changing that reality, which helps them clear the trauma and helps if that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of
What,
confusing.
what about the negative feeling that associated with that trauma? How do you get rid of that?
It seems to go away when you're looking at it in a different light, when you're looking at it flooded with white light and you're looking at it and reframing the thought behind that and changing it to what you want to see instead. I think it just goes away.
You know, on the logical side, I guess you could call it the logical side.
We get the engineer gonna.
The engineer side.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if, I mean, the way that we perceive things is how we react to things. So we could go back into that's what I had to do to get rid of my brainwashing, which is why the That's a Lie problem worked so well on that and the voices, because I had the two things to get rid of. I had been totally brainwashed when I was a child. So and I was totally conditioned outside of the normal conditioning that a person gets. This was an add-on. So I had to get rid of that. And what I found is in doing that, I just called everything a lie. Now that you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, I called that a lie, meaning I changed my perception of it, which got rid of the emotion, and all it was left was the voices. So that's all I had to get rid of now. So I had to do that in 2 steps. But it does, I think it all relates to the same thing, you know, because it's like the way you look at things changes how it looks. That's amazing.
So we're basically reprogram the computer program that was been running and put in there, just like you said.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what we're doing. I mean, right. I don't want to get off topic. Well, this probably isn't off topic, I guess.
It's not really.
Computer, you know, the more I listen to people and the more I think about things, I'm thinking, you know, there's a lot of talk about, okay, so we live, ever since the Matrix movie came out, I knew that we lived in a matrix, and I understood it right away. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I did some research on it because that's what I do. But then when these, I love listening to people who are discovering different ways to do things, different ways to see things. Like there's a guy named Robert Edward Grant, and I've listened to a lot of his stuff. I don't know if either one of you, I've sent you a couple of his things, Jerry, but I doubt that you have time to listen to it. But he's what they call a polymath. So he's into every kind of discipline. Mm-hmm. So, which if I had to do it over again, that's what I would do, is look at every single discipline, because they all end up contributing to the same thing. Anyway, so recently I've been thinking about, okay, so do we really live in a simulation of computer simulation? And then as far as the cosmos goes, the answer to that seems to be yes. As far as the Earth goes, or the world goes, which is kind of separate from the Earth, I think. It's a separate entity from the Earth. It's the world. It's like, you know, the world, and we're in it. We're not of it. So, I mean, to me, that means so that must be something else that's on the planet Earth. It must be a world that's on the planet Earth, maybe. I'm guessing, but that's kind of how I'm thinking about it lately. So everything that has computer programming components to it, I'm listening to both of you, and we're talking about the voices, and they act to me like they're computer generated. They're computerized entities or something. Maybe we are too. We just don't know it. So I'm open to thinking about that kind of stuff. I'm not.
Well, they do run the same patterns over and over again, like computers do.
Yeah, they do, and like a program does. So I mean, that's one of the things I noticed, and I remember telling you, Jerry, that to me they acted like robots in many cases. So you know, there were times when they would just repeat, you know, and repeat until it became so funny to me that I had to laugh, and then I realized that makes them go away too. So okay, good. There's another one. So we were accidentally finding things, but I'm thinking all of this is tied to some sort of a grand computer program.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think we're such powerful creator beings that we're actually creating the program as it's going.
Yeah, I kind of do too.
In a sense.
It's not like there's this whole big world that has a gazillion time kind of options. It's like you get the option of where you go, what you observe, because when I think it was back in the 20s, I think it was, that Einstein and his whole group, wasn't me, Einstein and anyway, the other physicists, they determined that because of that double slit program, that when we observe something, it changes. So that piqued my curiosity right away. Okay, I want to know more. And being a scientific type of minded person, I just wanted to dive into that. So that's kind of how I got to my conclusions of, what you observe changes when it changes when you observe it. So you don't, if you're going outside into your yard and you haven't seen it yet, you haven't been out there yet. So when you open the door to go outside in your yard, there it is, because you've created it. There's a pattern there already. It's already stored someplace in this little module. It's not there until you look at it. That just kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, that's how the AI stuff works, is the AI games. They'll just throw one segment up at a time, so the computer doesn't have to remember the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just comes into reality as the player walks through the simulation or through the game. Right. It just all of a sudden, is there. And so, yeah, I think.
Well, the voices are a nasty simulation.
We probably put them there. We did that just to train us.
Well, we may have put them there because, I think that one of the things that we discovered when we were working together on the book is that, okay, a lot of cases, a lot of the stuff that people go through, actually, when it's over with, a few years down the road, they can look back and say, at the time, this was a horrible thing for me, but now that I look at it from this vantage point, it was the best thing that could have happened. And a lot of cases like that. So I'm wondering right away, okay, so what's the purpose of these voices? What's the purpose of these entities? Is it to kill us or is it to teach us?
Well, it is a spiritual battle. And, in Africa, they treat schizophrenics like future shaman. They're already in touch with the spiritual side, even though it's the negative spiritual side, and they work with them and they become shamans.
I have a few questions here, guys, if you guys want to answer them.
Sure.
Alice asked, do people with intrusive thoughts have mental health issues?
No, everybody has intrusive thoughts. It's the extent of them.
I wrote a blog. This is just my own opinion from my own knowledge and research, that I really don't think mental illness exists. Unless there's some sort of an organic something wrong with your brain, there's no mental illness. Even Jerry will say there's nothing in the books that talks about, here's what mental illness is. Well, it's a symptom of behavior that doesn't quite match the norm. And so this group of people, what did they call their Bible? The
DSM.
The DSM, I was going to say the DMT. It's not right.
Yeah, that's probably what they're on when they came up with it.
Yeah. So they sit around this table, and they start when they go to update it, and they come up with, all these symptoms, and, this isn't normal. And so this is what we're going to put it down in the DSM. So
yeah, they need it for insurance purposes, so they can come up with some kind of drug and then charge for it.
Yeah, that's the scam. That's the big scam.
It's a total scam.
I wish everybody who talked about mental illness knew that was the scam.
None of those, not even one of those almost 300 diagnoses in the DSM has any kind of objective test to verify its existence. None exists. It's all the psychiatrist's opinion.
Yeah, and one of the medical doctors that we have on video, he was given an award, and so he was making this little speech. It's on Jerry's website and it's on mine, I think. Anyway, so he's a medical doctor, and he's talking about the DSM being pseudoscience and a complete fraud. And here's why. Because medical science, you have, all kinds of blood tests and x-rays and, brain scans and just all this stuff. And you have, what's the medication that you're giving, at least that was then, not now.
And you know the cause of it.
Yeah, you know the cause of it. So, but you don't know the cause of any kind of mental problem. I don't think there is a mental disease at all.
No. I tend to agree with you. The DSM is just a description of abnormal behavior. I was surprised when they were cramming it down my throat that they don't have any resolution to any of those problems in the DSM. It's just a detailed description of these class of behaviors that they have pathologized. And they got really ridiculous with it. Now they got caffeine, something like caffeine toxicity disorder. If you drink too much caffeine, you're disordered.
Oh my
They
gosh.
got child.
Okay, so that's me.
Yeah.
Child.
I got a caffeine disorder, a coffee disorder. My goodness.
The other one was child something disorder. It was like if kids are fighting.
Yeah.
Kids can't fight anymore.
Disorder.
They have to be zombies and always be polite. Don't get any steam out. Don't be a kid.
And that's the only way they can get paid. Do you think some of the voices that people hear is voice to skull tech?
I do. Yeah.
I think so too, but I've never run into any.
Yeah.
So you've taken care of those, Tony, haven't you?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily that, because we're talking about technology that they can put whatever idea or whatever out and go right to skull with it, and it would be a thought. That's the kind of tech I think she's asking about. Alice was asking about that.
Yeah, I've read about that, and there's a lot of talk about that on our Hearing Voices group. There's a couple of people who insist that they're not they're hearing their voices through tech.
Right.
And I don't know how you prove that, but I mean, if they do all the exercises and all the treatments and stuff like that we recommend, and they're still getting the same thing, well, then we probably have to look at the tech side of it, I think.
Well, Sherry, also you could compare it with the patterns of true schizophrenic voices that we've come up with and see if there's any difference. Because those guys who are broadcasting that stuff, they don't know about these patterns.
No, they don't. So
and what I'm afraid of is that if they find them out, then they will broadcast patterns that do match schizophrenia.
Yeah, probably so.
So what I see a lot, I mean, we see AI that's been placed, chips, boxes, wires, AI, we see hybrid AI where it's a consciousness attached to an AI, and we remove all that stuff. So that's what I see. But as far as the tech and being able to identify whether
okay, so the tech is, that's what I was going to ask you earlier when you said AI. I thought, oh, I wonder if he does the tech part too. Right. So I'm glad you brought that up again.
So it would be a theory. I mean, it would be AI that's attached to us in our energetic field. So, and we remove all that and separate that because it doesn't belong there, just like we would an entity. But some of the AI actually speak to us and tell us what they are and who put them there and what's going on. I probably spend more time with the entities than most practitioners because it's interesting to me. I want to know how they got there, what let them in, what they've been doing.
And what they tell you.
Oh, just anything you can imagine. It's absolutely, I can't even put my finger on it. It's just so much stuff.
I remember watching one of your videos, Tony, and you were working on this lady, and there was an entity that was in her abdomen, and he didn't know how he got there. He just ended up there because he jumped around from one person to the next. I guess he was sort of an old Western scoundrel type of guy. He was doing a bunch of stuff to different women, right?
Yeah.
And he was just jumping around from one woman to another, and he landed in your
client.
And he didn't know how he got there, but he wanted to leave. So
I think
thought that was...
if I remember correctly, I don't think it was a lost from light entity. It was a earthbound soul. And as soon as the people had sex, it was sexually transmitted. That he would just jump to the next one.
But this one, he couldn't get out.
Right.
He was trying to get out, and he couldn't get out. So
and he didn't understand why he was suppressing their sexual energy, because he wanted their sexual energy. He goes, I want to have sex or something.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why that is.
But it was working the opposite way for him.
But it's just crazy when you listen to the sessions and stuff. And I've stopped being amazed or surprised by things that are told to me, because I'm like, it's just part of the thing. You know, the devil sent them, Satan sent them, the boss, you know, the whatever.
So what about regular entities? You take care of those too? Invisible entities?
Mm-hmm. You mean just regular entities?
Well, I call them entities. The voices would be the entities.
We have so you have your demons, your lost from light entities that are just there doing demon works. And I've come across earthbound souls that have been turned to do demon works. I've come across thought form entities, which the person creates at some point in their life to help protect them, or a thought form entity where we're such powerful creator beings that if I speak ill of somebody, or I can actually create a thought form entity and send it to you because of what I am thinking and saying, and it ends up being a thought form entity, which is an actual being with the spark of source in it, that it was created to cause ill will to you. And so there's that, and there's lost souls, or not lost souls, earthbound souls. And then you got.
Do you also teach your clients how to protect themselves from being attacked?
Yeah, I try to. Your best protection is keeping your internal light shining brightly so nothing can get to you, and keeping your frequency high. So we're human. We have low states of conscious, or low states of vibration. We got worry, fear, all that stuff. We get there. The key is recognizing that you're getting in a low state and reversing it, either doing something that's going to increase your frequency, increase your vibration, make you happy, joyful. If it's a negative thought that comes in, reframing that thought, like I don't know, a thought, say I'm ugly, just reframing that thought, changing that thought into a positive thought.
So, nobody's ugly.
Yeah, right.
I don't think anybody's ugly.
Reframing the thoughts and stuff that come in, and change it into a positive vibration. And the other thing is, anything that you envision as protecting you will protect you. It doesn't matter if you're envisioning putting armor on before you go out for the day, or you envision this bubble of light around you keeping you protected. It will protect you. You could envision this pen to protect you, and it will protect you. Doesn't matter what it is. We're such powerful creator beings that we can visualize anything as protecting us, and it will protect us. So that's how I would.
Yeah, I used to think that you had to, build a barrier around your body, with some kind of energy barrier around your body. And now I know that you can do it with anything at all, because we are such powerful beings. I mean, holy smokes, yeah.
So whatever that you want to envision it, and it could be your own thing. I mean, of course, I think that's why a lot of diets and stuff don't work for people, is because we're so individual that it just, whatever you want to do or whatever your body needs, it can.
Well, one shoe has never fit all. That's what the government tries to put on us, which is probably why they're not succeeding.
Right. So whatever you envision will protect you.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one more. There's one more question here. Are all the people who hear voices schizophrenic, and do all schizophrenics hear voices?
Now, there's different kinds of schizophrenia. The ones who hear voices are paranoid schizophrenics for the most part. Mm-hmm. There's others that are just disorganized. You know, they can't put a thought together. There's different, but the most prevalent type of schizophrenia is paranoid schizophrenia. Okay? And you know, everybody hears a voice from time to time. And you can be driving into traffic and go, what would it be like to drive your car into the oncoming traffic? That kind of stuff. And that doesn't make you schizophrenic. What it is when they start taking over. They start taking over. They start taking over your mind and your body. Okay? And that's what they'll try to do. Is they will try to push the original character out and take as much control as they possibly can. Now, I have here the end result of one of those takeovers. And Sherry, you know this. This was what's her name's son who's locked up. He killed 4 people, cut his girlfriend into a million pieces.
Yeah.
Janine's son.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have a poem that this guy read. He's locked up in isolation in the Colorado State Prison right now. But in this, he's talking about his voices. And this is what happens if you don't fight back. Okay? You want me to read this thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It's kind of written in pencil, so it's kind of fades at some parts, so I struggle with it. Tell you what, let me grab my glasses real quick. Be right back.
Poor Jerry. He don't have his glasses right there in front of him? Huh.
Yeah. Well, I'm wearing mine, so.
That's funny. That's funny.
I guess he wasn't going to have to read anything.
I guess not.
Okay.
Here we go.
This helps.
Okay.
It's called There Is a Monster. Okay, so he wrote this from inside the prison. He's writing it about the voices who had him kill his girlfriend and cut her into a million pieces, and they still, I don't think, have found her body. He goes, there is a monster that lives in my head. The monster is real. It's not under my bed. My monster tells me things to do. It tells me sometimes when the news is new. My monster is crying as it spent all the years drowning out my courage and disposing my fears. My monster is strong. That's what I like to think. My monster is coming when it's time to drink. So he's basically saying he starts drinking alcohol, that monster takes over. Mm-hmm. My monster is ready. My monster is strong. What will I do when my monster is gone? My monster will never leave. That's his plan. It overwhelms me when I'm making a stand. Okay, so he can't beat it back any longer. There's a monster inside of me. I thought I was strong. How could this be? My monster has a name also. He walks in the dark whispering Yazoo. My monster awaiting me. Or my monster's watching me. He won't tell you my name. My monster is the shadows you cannot see. His heart is heavy. He plays for the game. My monster is awake. He wants to be monster. He's as blood from a lake. His bond is with me, now monster. He has nothing else to do. My monster's awake. So this guy, I think he shot 2 or 3 gang members in a drug gang, and then he murdered his girlfriend and cut her into a million pieces. And he almost killed his mother. So very, very seldom do people get to that point where they're completely taken over. But I've seen it in the prison. I've seen it in the emergency room where the original person is either completely overcome or is not there anymore. And the voices have taken over. So it's critical that you fight back against them before they get to this point. Mm-hmm. And the medications, even though they're toxic, they will help lower the intensity of the voices. They weaken them, and they're tranquilizers, so they allow the person to sleep. And there's a number of patients I would not have been able to reach had it not been for those drugs.
Mm-hmm.
To keep people on those drugs for years, no, they're killing them. They're slowly killing them. They're doing neurological damage big time. They found that out with some of the autopsies with state prisoners when they did autopsies on psychotics who'd been taking these medications all their lives. Their brains were shrunk like walnuts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the big pharma and the psychiatric mafia jumped up and went, "Oh no, it's not our drugs. It's the schizophrenia doing this."
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the researchers started feeding those same drugs to rats and monkeys and mice, and they got the same result. It rotted out their brain, it rotted out their peripheral nervous system. It causes permanent neurological damage with long-term use. And of course, they never tell their patients that.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. They just want to sell the meds. I wish there was some natural thing that would, not their medications that they make, but I wish there was some natural thing that would just stop the voices. And we had talked about this before the show, because a lot of the sessions, there's so much going on. There's repeating things being said, and they're just trying to throw wrenches in the works. But I would just like for one, something that a client or somebody could do to just suppress those voices for just a few moments, 10 minutes, something.
Oh yeah, shoot. There's things you can do for that. The rubber band around their wrist,
Mm-hmm.
get them to snap it really hard. That'll shut them up for a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that shuts them up, and I used to do this all the time in the ER when the voices were so loud I couldn't get any information from the client, is you just vividly imagine that duct tape is wrapped around their mouths, and then put them in a white box and shoot them out into space. That'll give you 10, 15, 20 minutes. They will return,
Mm-hmm.
but they get silent. They will shut up for a short period of time. What you vividly imagine on this side happening to them over there actually happens to them.
Mm-hmm. Because we're such powerful creator beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can imagine them being hit by lightning. I would imagine duct tape being put around their mouth. There was one guy I remember I'd asked him, I said, "Okay, have they shut up?" He says, "Well, they're not talking anymore, but they're doing
Yeah. So,
so that surprised me.
well, I have a question, Jerry. Is it the client that's envisioning this happening, or is it you as a practitioner that's envisioning this to happen?
It's me. And I didn't say a word to him.
Okay.
I just visualized it, and then I came out of it and I said, "Okay, have they shut up?" And I'd said 95% of the time they would have shut up. Now they will come back.
Yeah.
It gives you various amounts of time, but it gives them enough time to use Sherry's That's a Lie program, gave them enough time to repeat the 23rd Psalm, gave them enough time to ask their guardian angels for help.
Mm-hmm.
Because they do carry the person off. They will carry them off. I remember one guy I was talking to in the ER, the voices told him to drive out into the desert till he ran out of gas and then get out of his car and take his pistol and shoot himself in the head.
Mm-hmm.
So he did that. He ran out of gas. He went out to the desert, got his pistol out, and he was about to shoot himself in the head when this bird landed in a tree right near him and just started screaming at him. And he said he lived in the desert all his life. He said he never saw a bird like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he took the gun and he shot at the bird, and the blast of the gun woke him up.
Mm.
And he looks at the gun and he goes, "What was I trying to do?"
Mm.
So I wonder how many of those 50,000 people that kill themselves every year actually get into that hypnotic trance where they're being led to kill themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I guess, like, I'm thinking about with my sessions where I need to talk to them. I'm basically negotiating with them. I'm a hostage negotiator, trying to get them to see the light that they lost and see that they've been lied to and deceived into doing this stuff, that they don't need to do this any longer, and there's something better for them. So I don't necessarily need them to be quiet for a long time, just enough to be able to get my to help them to see the light, I guess, is what I'm looking
Yeah,
for.
well, we'll try that. Try the gagging them or making their mouth numb. Now
Lightning
the
strike.
other thing, what was I going to say? God, I lost my train of thought.
Talking about gagging them, what were
Yeah,
you?
there were other things that they didn't like.
But
Oh, I know what it was. In trying to talk them out, I found that they have to give a certain amount of the energies that they steal from the client to entities higher up.
mm-hmm.
So basically, they're slaves,
Yeah.
right?
But,
And they're miserable, and they don't like being slaves. So I would talk to them about how miserable they are.
yeah.
Say, well, you're nothing but a slave, and you're talking to me, and you're not supposed to talk to me. That you broke the rules. You know what's going to happen if you go back there now. You're going to the pit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can show you a way out of that. Would you like that? Because
Right.
they're gonna beat the crap out of you. And they go, well, yeah, and put them in the light and ask them for somebody to come and pick them up and carry them away.
Yeah. So we get that all the time, and I'm in the flow, and I'm using all that stuff to try to get I guess I would kind of call it verbal judo, trying to get to the point where they see where the problem is, see that they're slaves, or see that they're bound to this and they don't need to do it any longer. It's so interesting to me.
And I find,
I
when
love talking to them.
they find they've been lied to, because I'll take them and walk them down, say, okay, let's go look for the light in you. Let's go. We're good. You're willing to do it. Eventually, they'll see a dim red light, and I tell them, I thought you were told that you had no light in you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they were furious when they learned that. I still can't get over that. I mean, they're liars themselves, but to be lied to about that, they
Yeah.
were mad. I mean, every single one of them was upset that they were lied to and told that they didn't have any light in them, and that just blows my mind. It's like, um, that's a consistent weird reaction and then
I
they
just
they
wonder
kind of
where that
turn
might.
on their bosses.
Right.
I just wonder where that idea might have come from. There's a piece in one of the scriptures in the Christian Bible that tells us if we get to a point in life where we do something wrong and we know it's wrong and we do it anyway, that we will lose our soul. That's a pretty scary prospect.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're in a bad situation and you know you can get out of it, but you stay anyway, that's going to make you lose your soul. I just wonder if that idea came from something like that.
Mm-hmm. I think, well, a lot of the earthbounds, you'll have them tell you that because of religion or whatever, they killed themselves, or they did this or did this while they were alive, that there was no redemption for them, so they didn't go to the light.
Yeah.
And they missed it. And then the same thing with also, I have earthbounds that have been turned to do demon works, and then they're basically a lost from light entity, a demon, and they've been turned, but they were met by some kind of fallen angel, some kind of black entity or dark entity, or it could even be something that was playing, that they promised them to give them something if they did this,
Mm-hmm.
be able to get them back to their family if they did this, or be able to get them to do whatever they want
Mm-hmm.
if they did this. And then my biggest help is having the angels help me to show them what they're missing, or what their journey is going to look like once they detach from the person, once they find their light again, what their journey is going to look like, what are they going to change to, what could they be doing. And once they see that, they're mad, they're pissed off, they're ready to go, because they've been lied to and deceived into doing this thing, and they don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
So poor fellas, I feel bad for them. But so Shoot, we've been talking for almost 2 hours.
Oh, have we?
Yeah,
Oh, hell.
it's good conversation.
Yeah.
There is, I think there was one question. Let me check real quick. There was one question that we can answer real quick, and then now I'm not seeing it. Oh, Jody wanted to know what your thoughts were on learning disabilities and how they're diagnosed, because we were talking about that a while back of the diagnosis of different things.
I don't know. I'm working with some autistic kids right now with the Mace method, and so far we've had good luck with it so far. There is a telepathic segment of that program where you can communicate with people who are nonverbal through the mother or somebody who's close to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I don't know about. Yeah, you could try Mace and see if it works. That's what I do. I don't, they asked me, well, can you do this? I said, well, I don't. Let's try it and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times where I thought it was voices, when you run the Mace thing, it turned out to be a negative identity.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I think it's a negative identity and it turns out to be voices, and then they're interfering with the person forming an image, which they have to do in order for the system to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they'll get louder, they'll start mocking the person, they'll start distracting them, and then you got interference with the Mace regimen.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't that by feeling? Don't you go then to feeling? How do you feel about this? What's your...
Yeah, it's the feeling that has to be what do you call it? Discreated, uncreated
Mhm.
again. Yeah. So I've never seen anything work like it ever. I mean, you've seen some of the feedback I got, right, Sherry?
Yeah, I posted it
Yeah.
on the website in
Yeah.
testimonials.
Yeah, it's great. Great. It works better than any other therapy I've ever seen, and it works quicker. So any of you guys who are thinking about taking psychiatric drugs, go to www.causisminstitute.com instead and see if you can't find yourself a Mace therapist who will work with you. That's CAUSISM institute.com. And they call it causism because it gets to the cause of the psychological problem. Yeah. And even if it is entities, it will remove the negative emotions and the trauma that those things feed off of. So you'll come out of it better, even if the entities are still there.
And then you can go to Tony and he'll finish them off.
My favorite part. It's great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this has been crazy. We could talk all day for 3 hours or more, I'm sure, but is that a good time? That's a good point to end it, right?
Yeah,
for
sounds
me.
good to me. Did we cover everything you wanted to cover?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I wanted to, we talked about how to protect ourselves. We talked about how to get rid of them. And I think we covered everything that I wanted to cover.
You know,
What do you got?
I got
Go
one
ahead.
more poem here. It was written by a mental patient on a psych ward.
Uh-huh.
So this kind of gives you some insight into what these hospitals are like where they're treating these people.
Mm-hmm.
So this is her opinion. You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It's called The Psych Ward. It was written by a female patient. She says, inside these plain adobe walls, unhappiness and misery are waiting, always waiting, to envelop and imprison me. The toxic atmosphere is real, invading body, mind, and soul. The staff are all burned out for good. There isn't anyone who's whole. We're all locked up here together. Disgusting, dirty, noisy hell. It's anything but therapeutic. No one here is getting well. Zombie patients walk the halls or lie in bed devoid of life. Violence and agitation are only part of all the strife. The staff are chained to their computers. There isn't time to help a soul. There's far too much to document. That's how our most important role. They call this place behavioral health. Misnomer if there ever was one. There's nothing healthy about this place. with windows barred, no air or sun. The managers all crack their whips. We're never doing well enough. It's all a numbers game to them. They fill our minds with all their stuff. Every day I'm at work. I long for something else instead. It sickens me to be here now. Constant pressure fills my head. Demands impossible to meet are draining all life from me. One day I'll disappear from here, and then at last I will be free. Now, this could have been written by a staff too.
Kind of sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like documentation, that thing where she says, managers crack their whips. We're never doing well enough. It's a number game to them. Makes me think it might be a staff.
Mm-hmm.
They fill our minds with all their stuff. Every day that I'm at work, I long for something else instead. It sickens me to be here now. Constant pressure fills my head. That might be a staff member.
Yeah. Right.
So this is psychiatry. This is what they have to offer these people. This is their psych hospital.
And it's not working.
Not working
at all.
The drugs only tamp down symptoms. They don't cure anything. And they won't consider these entities that are causing this. Once you get rid of the voices, all the symptoms of schizophrenia disappear with them.
Mm-hmm.
They're gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I have everyone's links down in the description. If you need to find something, it'll be down in the description. If there's something that we talk about and we didn't have in there, I'll put it in after this session. Final thoughts, you guys?
Well, thanks for having us. People need to know this stuff.
Yeah, I think we've kind of talked about everything we need the people to know. I mean, we could have gotten into a lot more stuff that's going on in the world, which is all very, silly and stupid and ugly, and fits just what we're talking about. So,
well, I'll tell you, these patterns that the schizophrenics hear, these things match exactly what's coming over the mainstream media right now. It's a one-to-one correlation between what they're feeding us and what these politicians are feeding us and all these psychotic symptoms.
And the cure is, that's a lie. I send you love, and then go about your business. Just, if we all did that, I think that would make a big difference in the world.
Well, if they didn't believe what they were saying, it would make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's people are believing their constant lies. I mean, they're being exposed. They're being exposed at a rate like never before.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you guys. Thanks everybody for being in the chat. Thank you for the great questions. Well, Dee just asked a question. What about bipolar? She says. Want to hit that quick?
Well, bipolar does, the symptoms of it are somewhat ameliorated with lithium, but I think it would also be amenable to the Mace energy method.
Okay, beautiful.
I didn't believe that it could help alcoholics until I saw it myself. I mean, they would tell me it would, and I'm like, nah. I've had too many years working with alcoholics and real bad alcoholics. And then I ran into one in my practice, and she started drinking normally after that.
Mm-hmm.
She had control of the drinking. And I've heard other Mace therapists say the same thing. They've run into that where I thought it was impossible.
Wow.
Interesting. Do we put that, is that in your description? Is that in the links that you gave me, Jerry, about the Mace method and where to point people to that?
I don't think so. It's www.causisminstitute.com.
Let me go get it for you.
I'll just put it in the chat real quick. Give me www.
Causism, CAUSISM, institute.com. And there'll be a list of certified therapists on that site.
Hopefully I have that. Causism Institute. I hope I have that right. I'm going to put that
But
in
here, I'm
the
going to
chat
send
real
it to
quick.
you, Tony, over the chat.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that'll work.
That'll be right. Let's see, chat.
I'll get that in for everybody.
Causes of
If all the mental health centers and the VAs would use this instead of the garbage that they're using, you wouldn't have no 50,000 people a year killing themselves.
Right.
I mean, the Western mental health system is garbage. It's just total garbage. It's lies, deceptions, drugs. They just drug everybody silly. They don't cure anything.
Well, and some of those drugs affect our hypnosis too, especially the SSRIs or the SSR. Yeah, that SS. Is it SSRIs? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
SSRIs.
that's right. I've never taken them, but I think that's right.
Well, so what we need in the hypnosis is we need people to feel, and it just cuts and dumbs down the feel, and you can't feel, so they can't really get into the hypnosis very well. But I've had few that are able to still, even though, but that's okay. So I put that link in the chat for the Mace method, so you guys have that. And God, hate to let it go. These conversations go so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sure do. Thank you so much for inviting us. This was great.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for coming and talking, and hopefully we answered everybody's questions that they have, and they can see it on the repeat. So we'll have to do this again. I love you all. Thank you all very much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.